All right, so Shopify is still growing and expanding to new markets as we speak. Shopify stock 35% up last 6 months. The amount of Shopify stores worldwide still on a pretty good trajectory. And fast-growing markets right now include Latin America, Poland, or Portugal, for example. Earlier this year, I actually joined a massive Shopify event in Portugal, like a 5-star hotel, fine dining, top e-com brands invited. It was organized by an agency called Scray and the Shopify team. And all this is just to build more trust within these markets and be able to expand quicker. Now, what's interesting about this, the expansion playbook is always the same. Like when I was in Portugal, I could see a lot of parallels to how Shopify came to Germany, which is probably another 3 or 4 years ahead in this expansion. And even back then in Germany, we could see a lot of parallels to the US market, which is probably another 1 or 2 years ahead in this expansion. And if you live in one of these expanding countries or expanding markets, you can benefit from the momentum and position yourself early. So when Shopify comes to a new country, the first businesses or the first companies that try it out are usually smaller startups. Yeah, that's because they're pretty flexible with their business stack. They don't have so much to lose. They don't have to migrate because they might be starting from scratch. So it doesn't cost them much to try it out. And usually this goes pretty well. So then Shopify collects the first data points, the first country-specific requirements, because every country also has different like legal requirements and whatnot. And they also start to collect more case studies. So this is a translated German blog article, for example. We have a German equivalent of Shark Tank, and then we had like all these different brands that were featured. So these are like the first real and cool case studies that you see. But if you want to capture a larger portion of the market share, you need to onboard bigger companies and more established companies. So now we're talking Shopify Plus, but then larger companies are also more hesitant to try new software because they already have their established processes, they have running systems, there's more on the line, and then migrations cost a lot of money, and they might not even have time to look into new software. So it takes a lot more to convince them. And at this stage, Shopify really needs 3 different things. So number 1 is case studies from other bigger companies, because yeah, if startups run successfully on Shopify, okay, that's all cool and all, but if you want to convince established companies, you need other established companies to show for, right? And if you have a lot of other brands that are doing like millions and millions per year and they are able to operate on Shopify, then why shouldn't your company be able to run on Shopify as well, right? That's kind of the case you make here. It's almost similar to being a freelancer, where you need like the first case studies to attract the next clients. It's the exact same problem or the exact same thing that Shopify does. Get more case studies, get more clients, and repeat. The second thing they need is localized content. Content tailored to this specific market, like speaking the same language, addressing pain points, legal regulations they might face. For example, in Germany, GDPR was like a super big topic because yeah, Germans take privacy very seriously. And similarly, you might have to create content around problems that other markets face. I would even count in-person events here because they also help to educate the market or to convince new companies to potentially migrate to Shopify. And Shopify is actively supporting this. So if you can create content, if you can facilitate events, there's a good chance you can even partner up with them at one point. The third and last thing they then need are reliable partners, because let's say they do have a few companies that would be interested in migrating. They still need reliable partners for the actual implementation. Yeah, and these need to be reliable in terms of communication, but also skilled, so technical wise, because yeah, Shopify has to make sure the experience is good overall, like the customer experience. So the more professional, the more as an expert you can brand yourself, the better. So if an agency builds a close partnership with Shopify, it's not unlikely that they will pass some leads over time. And the less established a market is, and the sooner you do this, the easier it is to form these partnerships. In Germany right now, we're almost at the next stage of this evolution. So now we're seeing more and more case studies from enterprise brands. So one level beyond just Shopify Plus, brands doing like 200, 300, 400 million per year. But at this point, it also becomes more complex because, I mean, obviously technical complexity grows, but also deal cycles become longer. There are much higher requirements for support levels with these like bigger companies. And yeah, enterprise has its own set of challenges, totally worth talking about in a different video. But I just want to point out that it's now more difficult to form these close relationships with Shopify as a newcomer agency compared to, let's say, a growing market where nothing is established yet. All right, that's all I have. Hope you find this interesting. And my recommendation would be, if you are in a growing market, just look at the other markets that might be a couple years ahead. look at the top agencies and look at what they've been doing. Like, look at the content they create, look at the events they facilitate. It's all out there, publicly visible, and you literally just have to copy everything and localize it to your market. Hope you find this helpful. Let me know what you think. I'll see you in the next. Bye.